Okay, I'm actually going to start it now.
Sounds good.
All right, so Ryan, do you want to do a nice countdown?
From what? Five?
You can surprise us, whatever number you
All
like.
right. Four, three, two, one, start.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Dylan, also known as Tie Dye here on YouTube, and welcome to episode 2 of the Pixel Pusher podcast. Today we have two guests. Since it's our second episode, we thought we'd switch it up. We have two awesome people, both from very different sort of representations of the industry. Our first guest, if you'd like to introduce yourself, Taylor.
Hey guys, it's Taylor Brandenburger, associate art director and lead artist at Dekogon.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Oh, keep going, keep going.
No, that's it, man. I got nothing else.
That works, man.
Yeah.
And then we also have a good friend of ours, Brendan.
Hey guys, my name's Brendan Vermeltfoort. I just graduated about a year ago, and now I'm working at EA as an environment artist.
Cool,
Nice.
cool. And of course, co-host Ryan Levac.
Hey guys, you already know me from the last video, but yeah, I'm Ryan Levac. And so the main reason we wanted these two guests on today is because they both come from different parts of, different starts in the industry. Brendan went to school and Taylor is self-taught. So we just wanted to hear their advice and like their stories that they went through with two very different paths, I guess.
Cool. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure if you guys have looked in the comments or followed me on Twitter or anything, like I get bombarded with this question all the time. And just in general, I think there's not enough sort of explanation on should you be self-taught, should you go to school? And hopefully we can clear up a lot of that stuff for you guys in this podcast over the next, hour or so. We can go over a bunch of questions. A lot of you guys asked stuff on Twitter. So we got a pretty solid amount of information to get through here. So hopefully this helps you guys out if you're, trying to figure out what's the best for you and what's good and what's bad and so on. So,
Awesome.
Sweet. Ryan, would you like to start it off?
Yeah. So this is a question to both of you guys. You guys can decide who wants to go first or not. But what was the most difficult part about how you entered the industry, and what would you change if you could go back?
Brenda, you can go first on this one.
Oh man, okay. What I change? I think networking is a huge part of entering the industry, and I think at least the school that I went to, they pushed it a little bit, but not to the extent that I probably should have gone to. The school that I went to kind of pushed more for a demo reel, which wasn't necessary to entering the studio. As an environment artist anyway, I'm sure if you're going to animation, VFX, something like that, a demo reel or a sizzle reel would have been like a lot more efficient for you. But a demo reel is not really necessary, and a lot of schools haven't really adapted to that new aspect. They're kind of very much like pushed back. They like something visual that the school itself can show off. So
Yeah, it's kind of like free marketing in a sense, if you think about it that way.
Well,
But I guess like overall, looking at college, like how did you feel about your experience? Like all 3 years, was the time sort of spent well there?
yeah, I think it was definitely spent well. It kind of depends on like who you are and your kind of work ethic, but it was definitely very valuable for me. I got to kind of like they kind of guided me on a path that I probably wouldn't have known if I just like didn't go to school. So personally, it helped me a lot, and I'm really glad that I went to school for it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So like you weren't too sure if you wanted to do environment art ahead of time, or it just sort of.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
I actually wasn't going before I went to school. I had only done like 3D modeling once or twice in Inventor actually, not in any game modeling suite. So going to school really brought me to that path, and I'm really enjoying it. So
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely. I had no idea, man. And then I guess Taylor, your experience is like total 180 of that.
Yeah. So, yeah, just basically started off with liking the idea of game art. Never really thought I would pursue it. It was just like a backlog thing. It's just something I like video games, so I obviously liked how games were made and whatnot. But yeah, to go back on to what Brendan said about the whole demo reel thing, I can't stress this enough because even at Dekogon, we get asked, or just me personally, I get asked, demo reels, portfolio. Demo reel is a very old way of thinking, in my opinion. If you're an animator, sure. But even then, the thing about demo reels is that you can hide a lot of things. Um, so that's the number one thing. Like when I get sent a demo reel, like I want to be able to observe everything about the things I'm seeing, and sometimes you can't get the gist of it. So yeah, usually you can hide a lot of things. But going back to the question, yeah, to start off it started off as a hobby, and then after senior year, so I got in it pretty late. So turning 19, just needed a kick in the ass and just get it going. And what was the original question? Just so I'm staying on topic.
What was the most difficult part about how you entered the
Uh,
industry, and what would you change if you could go back?
if I can go back, I wish, because I talk about this with my coworkers, is that today there's just so many good resources. Like you have mentorships by these class industry guys like Josh Lynch. You got the what's the other guy? Matthew O. Um, just class that back then, all you had was YouTube. So, there wasn't really that much this is the right way, that's the right way. So trying to pick apart, what's the correct way of how to go things about that was very difficult because, you know, you don't really know what's right from wrong with when you have someone telling you, or when you have to like go out there for yourself and find it. You kind of have to sort through the junk. But luckily, I had an awesome friend, Dennis Porter, who basically before the whole mentorship thing was big, he did it on the side, but he only did it for people that he saw value in. So it was more of like a chosen thing, and he did it for completely free out of his own like want to get artists better. And so I did that with him, and man, that totally turned my 3D world around. The amount of knowledge I've learned from his is insane. So I basically summed up probably what would have taken me 2 to 3 years additional to like 3 months, 4 months learning an entire pipeline and how to perfect the pipeline. Um, so yes, if I were to go back, I would personally, because what I did was I took a year to learn by myself, and then towards this, like, okay, like I'm not growing. I realized that I wasn't growing. I wasn't getting better, and I was like, okay, I really have to step on the gas. So I reached out to him because he offered it to me a couple months before. I was like, hey, okay, I'm ready for this like mentorship. Like, let's do it. Like, I'm not gonna like back out this time. So that was essentially what led me up to that. And yeah, I still thank him to this day for it, for sure. Because just sorting through that junk as a self-taught is extremely hard. But nowadays it's very easy. People have tons of mentorship programs that you can just sign up for. Yeah, it's a little expensive, but my because like some of them are like 800 to 1,000 a crash course for a couple weeks. But in turn, you're skipping out on a lot of things, and especially time, learning from these class guys.
Yeah,
So
like
yeah,
a lot of these courses like CGMA and like you said, those mentorships, it's like, yeah, they're kind of expensive, but
insane.
I mean, the network or the connections that you're making through that, not to mention like if you were to go to school in the
That's true.
States especially, like I don't know what's going
Mm.
on down there. We were talking about this in our last podcast, but like your guys'
Shit.
tuition.
Dude, it would have costed me $250,000 for 4 years. So
Yeah.
Shit.
yeah, no, that's a hell no. That wasn't like in money. I'm very fortunate to where my family can't afford it, but it's not really about the money. It's about the time. I wasn't
Hmm.
really sold on spending 4 years of my life doing that. And obviously, I don't want my parents to pay that insane amount of money. But obviously, looking back at it now, it's ridiculous. But when you're in that bubble of school telling you, "Dude, you need to go to school, you need to go to school to be successful," it's like you kind of give it like, oh yeah, of course it's going to cost a lot of money because it's going to bring me all this success. But now I'm looking back at it, I'm just like, I'm very glad that I didn't drop that tuition because it's insane. It's only going to get worse too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess this is actually a pretty cool transition here. There's someone on Twitter actually asked us at the Silent Violin. He says, like, more or less for both of you, and this is piggybacking off of the last question, like, from the position you're in, what do you sort of envy from the other side? Like, let's say, you know, school, the financial thing, like you said, totally out of the equation. We're not going to talk about that. Like, is there anything looking at a school that you sort of wish you had going on? And then same to you, Brendan, like, is there anything looking outside that you wish you could do, you know, that school kind of restricted you from? Because I know for at least me and my experience, and maybe Ryan can attest to this too, it was like there was always so much going on. You barely had time to kind of step out and do what you want to do.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, for example, we had to learn animation and we had to learn like all that other stuff that isn't really related to environment art. Like, not just the basics though. We had like intermediate animation classes, intermediate cinematic classes. So like we had to make sure our grades were up to snuff in those classes, as well as working on our environment art portfolios.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I guess we can start with Brendan on that one. Like, anything you wish, you know, that you would have had if you sort of went a self-directed route?
Well, I would have saved probably 4 years of schooling. So, yeah, I actually went to one thing that I do like about school is I actually went to a university for programming for art or for games, and I didn't like that, so I got to switch. I think if I went like more like self-taught, I wouldn't have like gone through like a bunch of different like programming or animation or concept art, and I would have just gone more in like one direction.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think like you brought up learning animation. I think it kind of sucks in school because you're wasting so much time. But now that you go to a studio, you can do animation, and that's like one big thing that a lot of people don't realize. Like, I'm just an environment artist, but there's a lot I do. Like a lot of tasks that I have that involve animation or working with a concept piece or adapting a concept piece. So that in terms of school, that was really valuable to me. But in terms of I probably would have, you could be a lot more focused and like excel at one thing if you're self-taught. Like prop art, like you guys said, you couldn't spend a lot of time doing prop art in school, and a lot of teachers don't necessarily know prop art. They might know animation, they might know concept art, so they won't necessarily be able to help you in that one field that you want to learn, which is really unfortunate. Like doing a mentorship, like you said, Dennis Porter helping you, being able to like just dive into exactly what you want to do and exactly what they know, and someone who has tons of experience can help you with, might be way more beneficial than learning something from a bunch of teachers who aren't in your field or don't want to or aren't in the field that you want to be in.
Yeah. Totally.
Super fair.
That's a very good point. For me, the thing I envy probably on the other side is the social aspects of school. So, you know, being surrounded by other artists constantly, and just interacting with people, because, you know, when you're self-taught, it's all you. So it's, you know, you don't have someone to go bug. It's literally just it's everything. You are your biggest hurdle. So it's like, you know, there's no one, you can't like make up a distraction. Like, it's just everything that you do self-taught is at your own will. So it's very, you're all in or it's nothing with self-taught. And I think with school, you have social aspects that, because I'm a very social person, so I think that's the one thing I envy on the other side, is that social being, you know, interacting with your teacher, interacting with friends. And I talked to Clinton plenty of times, and he said that, you know, most of the people that, you know, we talk to today that are our clients, he knew from school or he knew from a job. So just like, I think that networking that comes from school is something that definitely can't be replicated when you're being self-taught, unless you are in a community. Like, you know, Collab was a really good opportunity to network, and, you know, Dynasty is a very good channel to network, and just everything. But yeah, definitely the peer-to-peer social interaction in real life, of course, was something that I envy for sure.
Totally.
Yeah, can I actually play on that?
Yeah.
So being in a room, what a lot of people don't kind of take in is being able to just communicate to other people. Working in a studio, that's all you do is communicate with other people. So
Okay.
if you can learn those skills in the classroom, it'll be way easier working or transitioning into a studio, for
Good
sure.
shout.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Even when we're doing contract work, I do sometimes have to open up like just some characters to get some guys to get used to just the interaction. Because even though we're an OS studio, we still have that barrier where sometimes people aren't socially I guess the best, and sometimes to say the least,
me.
they're just socially not there. But yeah, I can see it's probably a lot worse in person. But yeah, definitely I guess a good rule of thumb is to just be social. It'll help you out in the long run, even though it might be a little tough for you at first. But yeah, that's a really good shout, Brandon.
Yeah, I guess as someone who's kind of been in both positions, even if just briefly, because I was doing some contract work with you at
Yeah.
Dekogon, and it's encouraged to sort of have everyone in a chat room while they're working. I think that's like a super smart idea, and it's definitely something that helped out a ton.
Yeah.
As far as like getting to know people, and it sort of made the whole experience more fun. But being in a classroom and someone who's been in a studio, like you definitely can't like replace the actual experience of that. You have an issue, you get up, you
Mm-hmm.
tap someone on the shoulder. Um, it's definitely
Yeah.
like that on its own is worth it. You know,
Yeah. It just preps you.
exactly. Let's see. I guess Ryan, if you want to keep her going.
Yeah, well, actually, about that as well. I wouldn't have met Dylan or Brendan if it weren't for school, and
Oh, okay. Yep.
that's
See.
yeah, that's instantly some good communication there, some good networking. Like I'm sure
Yeah.
we have a bunch of other friends that we never would have met unless it was for school either.
Mhm.
And yeah, without school, I would have had a lot less friends, I guess you could say. Um,
Yeah. Totally.
uh, anyways, so for the next question,
Actually, can I add one more
oh
thing?
yeah, yeah, for
So
sure.
one thing that going to school can really help a lot of people for, like you're paying a lot of money for the schooling to begin with, but a lot of people don't have access to a computer or access to software. So going to school can really help that. I know like before I went to school, I just had like a tiny little laptop, so I'd have to do like art tests at school. I had to like do a lot of like freelance work at school, and that kind of helped me a lot.
Okay. That's cool.
So it's definitely like a different perspective for some people, but like
Yeah,
it
that
just kind of
that's
depends on your
true.
current situation and how you're willing to put in the effort, because you can learn without like all the high tech software and all the high tech hardware, but it's just your own path.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, and it's also a lot slower. Like
Mhm.
imagine trying to, I don't know, build lighting on a
yeah,
crappy little laptop in Unreal.
yeah. But I mean, whenever
Or
like
like,
I totally get that argument, but for me, it's just like if tuition, for example, is let's just round it to 10,000 a year. It's like you can
Mhm.
get all the equipment you want and like several mentorships for that.
Mhm.
that's true. That's true. But let's say here's another thing that I don't think we've covered at all is actually, well, Brendan touched on it a bit, but when I went to school, I had no idea what in games I wanted to work with. I was
Mhm.
thinking, hey, maybe level design,
Hmm.
but I'm like, I just knew I wanted to work in games. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know if I wanted to be an artist or if I wanted to be a programmer. But
Yeah.
going to school, I got a taste of all the different things, and I'm like, actually, environment art, like modeling and building environments, that's for me.
Yeah. That's one thing I was gonna also mention is that I guess going in as a generalist and then coming out as a specialist, um, it also is like very beneficial. As in, you're not if you got asked at a studio like, hey, can you do this, or like it's super easy, can you just do this real quick? Um, and it was something that was discussed in school. Like obviously maybe someone who is self-taught never even thought in their world that they would have to be dealing with some like prep, like rig prepping or something, but since you guys kind of like brushed over it in school, you guys kind of have that flexibility to be like, oh yeah, I can do this or I can do that. I might not be like, you know, crazy good at it, but I can at least prep it so we can, do other stuff besides, just modeling cars or just modeling, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Actually, before Ryan just like moves forward with this, I just wanted to say super quickly, because I know, like I said, a lot of people always ask me about should they go to school or not, and I don't want to feel responsible at all for persuading someone to do that, because I mean, we have some buddies.
Yeah, it's tough.
Shout out to Mo and Lyndon, who actually went to our school because they watched my videos. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Like everything we've talked about so far, I just wanted to bring up this point, kind of seems more like things you learn based on the social construct of school rather than the actual education. Just something to keep in mind.
Yes.
Because the education is typically very, like, it'll help point you in the right direction, but then everything else is sort of morphed by your relationship with the teacher and the relationship with your class. So
yeah, it's what you do outside of that realm. They kind of lay the foundation, but they are definitely not going to broaden that that horizon of just like showing you every little thing. Like, no, that's all on you. They'll lay the road, but no, you gotta travel down that road.
Exactly.
And yeah, that's something that not a lot of people, that's not something that a lot of people see once they're in it. And I think that's what Dallin's trying to say, is that once he saw it for what it was, he's like, oh, it's like I don't know about this.
Yeah.
And now he's kind of looking at the inside out. Everyone's looking at the outside in, and he's like, guys, it's not that dreamy as you may think it is.
Yeah, it's like when you break it down, it's like how much was done by the school and how much was done by you, and was that ratio worth the fee of entry, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And the stress.
Yeah, and the stress.
Oh yeah, way too much stress.
Get 3 giant scenes done in 4 months.
Yeah, crazy, man. I mentioned it a little earlier too, but you don't necessarily align with the background of your professors. So again, for us, especially, a lot of our teachers were animators.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a lot of teachers with a strong modeling background.
Oh no.
Yeah. So it's really unfortunate. And on top of that, you don't necessarily know specifically what, like, you should do research before you go to school. You should figure out like which teachers are there, if they are best suited to your what you want to go down. Since we had a lot of animating professors, they couldn't really help us a lot in like environments or in real, which is unfortunate. But another thing is a lot of teachers in schools right now, or at least in public schools right now, haven't necessarily been in the industry for years, so they're not up to date. Dylan, Ryan, I'm not sure. Yeah, Dylan, Ryan, I'm not sure if you guys had this, but the first year I entered school, they were persuading us to use Photoshop over the substance suite.
Yeah, that was our first year.
Yeah, so so you're definitely learning like consistently, but you might be pushed on the wrong kind of path. Again, learning how it was done before, how other people might tackle something, can be extremely beneficial when you get into like a studio and you see how every single asset is put together in different ways. For example, when you're bug fixing and you have to pull someone else's asset up and you have no idea like how they figured it out. If you kind of like learn the basics and learn other people's kind of pipeline, you can kind of better understand and easier fix like the problem they were having. So I don't know. It's kind of up in the air, but definitely do your research before you go to school.
Yeah, I mean that's what's so strong about these mentorships, man. Like, just drop $800 and you get this guy who knows exactly, like, especially if you know what you want, man. Like, the mentorships, what a deal. Just to cut through the fat, like, honestly.
Yeah, because there was.
Yeah, people think.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. People think like, oh, they see like the $400 price tag and they're like, damn, I don't want to drop that. Like,
yeah,
right away.
literally.
But you're paying thousands of dollars into school, but it's because there's a huge stigma behind getting a diploma and getting a degree and moving forward that a lot of people don't see. I can touch more upon that later, but it has a lot to do with like your personal discipline.
Yeah, and that's something that I get a lot of people come up or people will ask me like I'm just like, oh, just I don't have to teach you all this. You could just literally go sign up for this guy's mentorships, and you guys drop the link. Like, yeah, but it's expensive. It's like, okay, so you'd rather pay $50,000 in tuition a year? It's like, okay, yeah, let's do that. It's like, it's yeah, it scares me that I get it, money can be tight, but
Well, I
fuck,
think a lot of people are
just
scared because it's like, at least if you come out of school and you don't get a job, you have like a piece of paper to wave around. But if you do a mentorship, even though it's way cheaper and you don't get anything out of it, which would probably be rare, it's like you don't have as much to show for it.
it could be that. It could also be like some sort of, because you know how school kind of presses it down on you over time. They teach you more and more. I think maybe people might be scared about the overwhelming amount of information that is going to be fed in that mentorship. That I could see that too. Like imagine, you know nothing about 3D, and then Matthew O is teaching you all about 3D. You're like, dude, what the hell is this guy talking about?
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be just um, that barrier. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Well,
but I think that mentors, I feel like the mentors would, cater to that. I think it's a paranoia.
yeah, and I feel like if you're just starting and you like think that a mentorship route might be right for you and like self-taught mentorship, that stuff, not school. I think that like starting on YouTube before you even do the mentorships is a good idea. Like let's say you want to learn 3D and you see Matthew O has a mentorship and you're interested in it. Go on YouTube, find like a simple tutorial, make sure you're okay with learning 3D yourself before you drop that money.
Yep.
And
Yes.
like there's some good YouTube channels out there, tie dye, and then
Who's
like
that?
there's some other.
Hey.
Yeah, you can find a
Thanks.
bunch of resources on YouTube, and then you'll know if this is something you're interested in before you drop that $400. But it's the same thing for school as well. Like you should
It's a
still like
gamble.
let's say you're going to school for game development, check out YouTube, be like, hey, I want to learn how to model. Let's see if I'll enjoy learning how to model in 3 to 4 years of school.
Yeah, actually, that's another thing is 3 to 4 years. A lot of people see the mentorships. Like I personally did when I first started out and I was like first learning. They saw the mentorships. It's like, wow, 1 month. I don't know if I can learn like more than I can from a year of school in 1 month, but you totally
Yeah.
can.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah, you can learn like a year's worth of schoolwork and more from a mentorship because it's so like it's so toned down and so like so precise on what they're teaching you that you can just excel in 1 month than you would have been able to in a year.
Yeah, man. I mean, I learned the entire pipeline in like 3 months. Or
Hmm.
probably a 1 month, but it took me 2 additional months to perfect it. But yeah, and you sure as hell bet if you have a question about anything, those guys are gonna know the answer. Those are the guys that you want to ask because they're gonna tell you how, why it's better to do this and why it's bad to do that. Which is I don't think you'd get that those answers. When you have professors that are catered to different pipelines. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Ryan,
Yeah.
you can answer to that, right? Because you did the mentorship and the school. So like, how was the learning
Oh, yeah.
experience compared to both?
Which mentorship did you do?
I did one with Billy Met Junis through the
Okay.
Mentor Coalition.
Ah,
And
okay.
yeah, I unfortunately chose the worst time possible to do this mentorship because I was also building 3 scenes at the same time. So I'm
Okay,
like,
I get you.
yeah, so weekends were strictly for the mentorship, and then every weekday I was doing classwork. I had no time to myself really. On top of that, like I was doing esports team stuff with the
Oh,
school and
cool.
a bunch of non-game art stuff, and so I didn't really have much time to focus on the mentorship. So basically, the mentorship I ended up just being like, "Hey, I'm building this scene. Can you kind of like look over my shoulder and make sure that I'm doing it right?" So if I ever had any questions on the scenes I was making for school, I'd shoot Billy up a message and he'd respond. And what mentorships do when they're marketing, they're talking about how you're going to learn from the industry's best, right? But
Yes.
it never tells you saying that you're going to end up having this connection for the rest of your life. Like whenever I still have a question, Billy's always able to answer it for me, even after the mentorship's over.
Yep.
And that right there is worth more than the price I paid for it, right? Billy's
Yeah,
a
it's
great guy,
awesome.
and like can't put a price on that stuff.
For sure. No, that's yeah. Same here with Dennis Porter. Very close with him still to this day, and yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Yeah, we could move on to the next question now, right?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Cool.
Yeah, let's do that. So Kiru on Twitter, replying to Dylan's tweet, they say, how do you measure your own abilities in each situation, being self-taught or through school, to make sure that you are able to meet industry standards when entering the workforce?
Um, I feel like you do have to compare yourself a lot to other people. Um, I'd say the biggest thing I tell people is that when they say, "Oh, I can't get a job," or why does no one want to hire me or whatever, I say, well, go look up whoever's working there, look up their senior, and see what he's doing. And if your work does not compare to his, then you're not gonna get in. If there's similarities, then yes, you may be able to get in, but you know, do what other people are doing. A lot of it is just comparing yourself. That's the biggest thing, because you can't be cocky when you're self-taught, because you won't just get anywhere, or nor will you progress as like an artist and as a person. So yeah, a lot of it's just comparing yourself to what's already in the industry, like what's the talent already in the industry. And yeah, I still do it to this day, even though I'm in the industry. But I do compare myself to like what other people are doing, and if I don't hold up, then you sure as hell you'll find me loading up Blender and learning how to do all this crazy shit, because that's how you stay relevant, and that's how you stay in the industry. Because part of it's like, everyone's saying it's so hard to get the job industry, but you gotta stay in the industry. You can't just like you know learn Google SketchUp and stay on Google SketchUp. You gotta kind of have to progress and learn different programs. That's why right now I'm learning Blender, because it's slowly going to start creeping into the industry. So just staying relevant and keeping up with the bar that other artists are setting.
Don't scare me with that Blender stuff, man.
It's
Everyone keeps talking about
Blender's
that. I'm like, no.
Blender's coming up, man. It's getting
like
better.
it's like a drug, dude. You tried Blender?
So true though.
Yeah, it's fun, but yeah.
Yeah, but I guess like just sort of like continuing on with that a bit more, like when you were sort of like in the heat of getting caught up to speed and teaching yourself everything, and obviously you're continuing to do that, but like when you were starting out, like how did you sort of know when you were on the right track, when you were sort of making big sort of progress jumps? Like what was your sort of timeline? Like did you give yourself like a certain window, or like did you just say by the end of next year I want to be this good? Like what kind of units were you measuring your skills by?
I would say part of it was I never really had a goal that said like, oh, I'm gonna do this in this amount of time. It was always because I knew how crazy of a journey it was gonna be, so I didn't want to give myself goals, because say if something were to happen that prevented me from that goal, that I would no longer be able, or I would feel bad because I wasn't able to achieve the goal. So I tried my best not to give myself goals, because when you're learning, uh, having like a goal that's like hanging around your head can be a little like daunting. Now it's a little different. I prefer to set goals now, but back then, um, say the question again. It skipped me.
Oh, like,
Um,
wait, Ryan, do you want it?
so yeah, I'll say it. No worries. How do you measure your own abilities in both situations to make sure you are able to meet industry standard when entering the workforce?
Yeah, and I guess part of it's just having the right people, knowing the right people. Obviously, being in discords, you learn a lot from what other people are doing. So, again, comparing yourself to, what's this guy doing? This guy got a job because he made that portfolio piece. Why is everyone like this portfolio piece? And then you kind of pick it apart, and you understand why. And then also seeing people's work in progress is slowly develop. Kind of comparing yourself to that. And I guess another big thing was seeing just making a really solid portfolio piece, and then seeing the community perceive it well. I think that was the biggest boost for my confidence when I made the MGD programming device, and that was still in a very transitionary phase for me. But I did a solid job. I told myself I was going to do this, that, and this, and I even told myself that I was going to get a job from it. So I just kind of went in with that mindset that there's nothing that's going to hold this piece back. Everything about this piece is going to be perfect. And I set that goal and I did it, and it got a ton of attention. And mostly, I never get attention for any of my ArtStation posts because they're kind of whatever. And that's something I tell a lot of people that say oh, my ArtStation doesn't get a lot of likes or my ArtStation doesn't get a lot of posts. It's like, well, it's not the community. There's something that you're doing that's not working, that's not fitting. Whether that be the assets that you're making that you're posting, they're not. I've seen so many crates, I've seen so many barrels. Like, I don't really want to see crates. I don't want to see barrels. I want to see something that I've never seen before. So that's something I try to post a lot, and I try to do. Because that's something that when I did the Dennis Porter mentorship, he always, whenever he had an idea, he went into ArtStation and tried to see if he can find any other asset that was like it, because he wanted the students to have portfolios that no one else. He wanted us to have assets that you couldn't find anywhere else on ArtStation. So having that uniqueness to your portfolio where you can't see this anywhere else. Because as soon as I made that MGD programming device, that my green concept, I saw maybe like 5 MGD programming devices the next month. So it's like kind of staying on that creative side and not doing what other people are doing, but also getting that standard. Because sometimes you kind of have to look. You kind of have to step back every once in a while and be like, "Is this really that good, or is it just my personal opinion because it's mine asset?" But if I were to look at the programming device now, I'd be like, "Oh, I can change a few things here," but overall, it's a very well asset, and it was perceived well because of those things. There were standards in terms of like edge width, poly usage, all these things, and obviously the screenshots played a big role in the clickbait of it. So. Yeah, that's definitely one way to stay. I guess put yourself on the right track when you're self-taught.
Cool. That actually reminds me. If I can find it, I'll put this in the description. There's actually a really good thread on Polycount where a bunch of people. It was like as soon as they got into the industry, they post their portfolio, and it's just like, kind of like where they were when they stepped into the industry. And got their first studio job or contract position or something. So for a lot of people who are starting out and trying to find that bar, I'll put that down there if you're curious. But I guess we can move this on to Brendan now if you want to take a stab at it.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna play on Taylor really quick. Is if you see something super repetitive online, like you see a lot of crates, a lot of barrels, try to stay away from it because people are going to compare you to the very best. So don't fill your portfolio with like 100 sci-fi hallways because there are people out there that are really good at making sci-fi hallways.
Yes, dude, for sure.
Yeah,
and that's the big thing is because like, it's either if you're gonna up something, make sure it's one hell of a up because. When people were making all these MGD programming devices, it still didn't. It's still like I'm not trying to be cocky, but it still didn't overpass, the bar that I set. So it's like if it doesn't pass the bar, if it doesn't pass what you want it to pass, then don't even make it because they are going to be like, oh well, this MGD programming device is great, but like compared to this guy's, it's not that great because he did this, and that. Like if you're not gonna go the extra mile and make it awesome, it's just like what Brendan said. There's this one guy who is like a beast at making sci-fi hallways, and don't even take a stab unless you're going to make a better sci-fi hallway than him, or whatever you are trying to concept or make as a portfolio piece.
Mm-hmm. It's the same thing as posting like maybe an art test or maybe like a competition piece. People are always going to compare you to whoever won or whoever's the best. So
Yeah, actually, like when I did the Ubisoft NXT challenge last year, and I didn't place top 5. I was like probably the middle of the pack or something like that. Like when I sat down and had my interview and my critique session, they straight up told me like either drastically change it and make a new scene with the props or get rid of it like completely, because if people see that this is a competition piece and you're not even like placing or anything, like don't bother showing it off or anything like that, because people will just look at the winner. And
yes,
I don't know, like at first I'm like, oh, that really sucks, but when you think about it,
like, it sucks to hear.
Yeah, it's like I get it. I get where you're coming from for sure. So I made some changes to it, and it's mostly the same, but it's like totally rebranded and not associated at this point. So
Gotcha.
like, yeah, I never did that.
What'd you talk about?
Yeah. This next question though, I'm actually super curious about. I think our friend Mo asked this one. And Taylor, I think your answer will probably be pretty interesting for this one, is how is your work-life balance in each situation? So
Brendan, you want to go first in this time? I'm not sure if is the question, can it be directed towards Brendan too?
Yeah, for sure, both of you guys. It's just like with school, I guess there's more of like a structure. Not actually, no, everyone does it a bit different. Yeah, Brendan, I'd love to hear sort of how you went about it.
How like just being in school in general,
like your
working life,
like just balancing everything. I guess like staying relevant with your portfolio, and also dealing with the clutter that comes with school and stuff like that. And
it's pretty well structured for me. I think I was able to like the first year I kind of just took off. I kind of like didn't really care that much. I just kind of like did my own thing. But when I started getting way more invested in school, I started like talking to my peers and getting into it. I kind of put a lot more time into school because I was more connected to it. So it was easier for me to kind of just do the school thing, do my personal thing. It's kind of hard too for some people who like don't live on campus and don't live remotely close to kind of commute back and forth. Like buses end at like a certain time, so like getting home like super late at night, just exhausted, and then having to wake up for like a 9 a.m. lecture is kind of hard on some people, and I understand it. I know some people even live like 15 minutes, like a 15-minute walk from school, and they had trouble doing that. So again, it just kind of depends on your personality.
And
then
finding a balance.
It also kind of depends on your school as well. So I know it was mentioned a lot before, like, how much time should you put in an assignment? It was kind of brought up in the last question, but an 80 in school is not an 80 in studio. So if you push yourself to get an 80 throughout, you might be getting like a sponsorship or what have you. But is it really worth putting all the time into just to get like an 80 in school, even if it's not like what you want to do in the end? So it's a lot easier to just like reflecting back on the last question, it's a lot easier to just do your best in the one thing that you want to learn, or the 2 things or 3 things that you want to learn, than putting your time into like the 8 or 9 classes, especially if like a school like I know the first 2 years I had I think it's called a GED, or like a general education course or whatever. I forget what they're called.
Yeah,
you're right.
Elective thing, yeah.
So I was learning like Canadian history. That has like, it's kind of interesting.
Dude, I'm triggered.
That has nothing to do with my course. So if you just like, and then reflecting on the last question is don't compare yourself to your peers, don't compare yourself to your teachers, because an 80 in school isn't an 80 in studio. So compare yourself to ArtStation. Look on Instagram, see what other artists are doing, what level is the acceptable level. You can go on like Discords, like Taylor mentioned, like DNUST or Digital Bacon, and you can learn specifically what you need to hit the bar that you want to, without stressing yourself about like animation and concept art and all that. So
and then what was the question again, just so I get it right?
Oh, just like work-life balance when you were like learning and starting everything up.
Work-life balance, when I was learning, there's a lot of 8 to 12-hour days, just because just constantly learning and redoing and repolishing, like, well, why am I getting this normal error? Ask the Discord, why am I getting this normal error? And then, just like solving all these like little problems. And then, uh, but yeah, not the most ideal work life. Very not very social in that sense. Just because of all the time I was investing into learning. But now it's a little bit better now. I think having that room where we talk amongst the coworkers and work and whatnot, I think that's definitely helped that gap. But in terms of during that learning process, yeah, it's very isolating, and that's something that anybody that is going to get into being self-taught has to, I guess, come to terms with, because that's something that I hated and I dwelled on it because I wasn't being social. I didn't have that many friends. So like but I had this great career going. I just needed to keep pursuing it. But at some point you just kind of have to accept that, you're doing this at this stage of your life. You're just doing it while you're younger so you can be set up to where you have a lot more benefits when you're older. So it's kind of like, bite the bullet now, don't really go out, don't have too many friends, just invest all your time into learning this program, and then, or just learning this pipeline, and then, once you're done, then you can, experience, like going out and hanging out with friends and being more social, because that was one thing I hated as well, was, going through an Instagram, spent 12 hours that day just learning game art, and then I go on Instagram and my friends that are across state having the time of their life at some like college football party, and it's very, you feel it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's very isolating. But yeah, so with time management, it's kind of like you have to go all in for like 2 years, 3 years, depending on, well, it was 2 years for me because I didn't have those mentorships. I kind of went solo for a little bit, and then I went to mentorships. So yeah, going all in for that year or two, and then you kind of reap those benefits that you were missing through that period. And now, you come out with a career and a name, hopefully.
Yeah, like I can totally relate to that. Like when I moved to go to school, like I moved to a place where like I didn't know anyone, and I was coming from a city where there was like 3 or 4 really good schools, so nobody left to go to the same place I did, right? So it was more or less third year I definitely got a much stronger group of friends, but the first 2 years was pretty much like I had nothing to do but work. And even though that sounds kind of sad, but it was like incredibly beneficial to get me to the position where I am kind of right now. So I'm thankful for it, but it did kind of suck for the time being.
Yeah, it definitely sucks when you're in the moment, but once you get older, you're like, well, thank God I put that time in, because now I have all this shit, and now I get to have those friends, and I do get to have. It's like it's something you have to. It's like a sacrifice,
Yeah, you're like saving up
Yeah,
those
you're
points.
just borrowing time, pretty
Yes.
much. Or sorry, like, yeah, borrowing time from the future so that your future will end up being
Yes,
better.
and that's a lot. That's a lot of things people don't get when they have to go through that self-taught route. Is that it is the grind. It is a burden, and it does suck. Like it sucks because you are missing out, especially when you're in your early 20s or late teens. You are going to be missing out. But that's something that you kind of have to accept. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, another thing is people don't really realize that just because you go to school, doesn't mean you can just like, oh, let the course kind of just guide you and do your own thing. You still have to put in the time and learn
yes,
yourself. Like, sure, you get more of like a life balance, rather than just like a pure work balance. But what me and my friends dubbed it like the high school mentality, right? Like you just come in, just expecting like, oh, I'm just gonna like throw homework aside. Like I don't really care. I'm not gonna put the time in. I'm just gonna only focus on school at school. As soon as I leave, it doesn't matter. You have to put the time in. So
of
people
course.
learn at different paces, right? So like I don't know, putting 12 hours a day might be a lot harder for some people, but that doesn't mean like you can't put the time in while you're there. Like I saw a lot of people. I don't know if it was in Dylan and Ryan your year, but a lot of people as soon as they came to third year, they were like, or the last year, they were like, it just kind of dawned on them that they just kind of wasted a few years or like a few months, and that they should have put way more time in. So you really have to push yourself, no matter what in this industry. You have to push yourself to get to the level that you want to get to. You can't rely on someone else.
Oh yeah, you save that high school mentality for like animation class or something.
Yeah. Something you don't want to do. Like I know, have you guys met like Frank Yang,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like he wanted concept art. He knew right off the bat. Well, not right off the bat, but he knew like fairly early on the concept art. That's what he wanted to do. So by the time the last year came around and it mattered specifically for him to get a portfolio out there, all he focused on was concept art. He would show up, try to finish like an assignment in 20 minutes. Like you're not going to learn anything in 20 minutes, but he didn't. It didn't really matter to him because that wasn't like the field he was. He wanted to direct himself in. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had one assignment for animation class. Dylan and I, it was the scorpion or spider assignment. We had to do a walk cycle of a scorpion or a spider rig,
Yeah.
which was provided to us. I showed up to class 20 minutes early because I was up all night working on something else. I can't even remember what I was working on.
This.
But literally, my spider was just straight up like humping the ground. And he was walking. He was walking. I don't know how I passed. I think our prof was just like, this isn't what he's gonna do. He's not an animator. We're just gonna pass him, I guess. But the sad thing is, like, mine wasn't even the worst that was submitted. Like, everyone has to do that, right? You have to steal time from things that are less important to you and put it towards things that are like for example, I want to do environment art, so I have to like spend less time on animation. Still good to know animation, but I don't have to do my 5th walk cycle of the month. So I do one less walk cycle, and hey, I'll add one more, I don't know, prop to my scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you got to figure out how to balance between the classes that you want to do. Like who knows? Like we had one member in our class that up until the last year didn't really know what he wanted to do, and he was really good at animation and he was really good at environment art as well. So he was doing really good in both of those classes, and it was doing really well for him, and it gave him that choice, like come 3rd year, to be like, okay, I want to be an animator or I want to be an environment artist. So you definitely shouldn't dismiss those other classes. And I'm sure, like Brendan said, you utilize like the stuff he learned in animation in studio, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like Taylor, did you learn any animation, like any like walk cycles in your self-taught time?
Yeah, I first started doing animation, and then I didn't like how long it took to render, and then I think I actually started watching Sync New on Twitch, and he was making that big world, Aldrin, and that's what kind of inspired me to get into game art because I liked how it was real time. But yeah, I dived into some animation. I wouldn't rely on it, but I could do some simple animation like parenting and whatnot, and like get prep vehicles so they can be rigged.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, but in general, probably not. If I were to majoritize or generalize self-taught artists, I'm sure they are not so rounded like that.
Yeah, so like that's another thing that schooling definitely has, because it teaches you all the different parts of game development. Unless you're going to a school just for environment art or something. I'm sure there's some out there, but
Surprised it's not a thing.
like, I've heard somewhere that there is something, but it's like really, I think there's like only 1 or 2,
I
right?
think Vancouver has one of them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I believe Think Tank is very.
Yeah, Think Tank.
Yeah, Think Tank. Yeah.
Yeah, so they have, like, for example, my school and all the schools, at least in Ontario, that were doing game development are either game programming or game art, pretty much, or game development, which is both. And you learn everything in those kind of sections, I guess. So game art, you're learning animation, you're learning concept art, you're learning modeling,
Oh,
you're learning texturing, you're learning.
concept art. Oh,
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah,
I
you're learning
cannot paint
all of
2D
that.
in my life.
Life drawings,
Yes.
man.
Jeez,
Yeah.
that's a no for me.
Yeah, we had life drawings. Like we'd have models come into our class, and we had to sketch them. Like for
What?
practice.
Yep.
Dude,
Yeah.
I would drew like a stick figure.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I drew as well.
Nice.
Yeah, actually,
And my
can
grade
I
showed for
reflect
it.
on this?
Yeah, go for it. Go for
Yeah,
it.
so like I know a lot of guys like hate animation, hate like it sucks to do in school, and like if you don't want to do it, it's not like you feel like it's not worth the time. But, like working at like a small studio, you're gonna have to know like how to do everything, and concept art, it might say you don't might not know how to do it like well or like amazing, but being able to draw something and communicate it to someone else is like one of the most beneficial things you can do for yourself.
Oh, of course.
Like my art,
Yeah.
one of my art directors is a level designer, but he's able to just bang out a concept art super quick. Doesn't have it's just nice and dirty, but it's enough to convey the image that he wants and he's aiming for to someone else. So like
Totally. Even
you
like,
don't
yeah, go on.
you don't have to be perfect, man, but like
Of course.
learn
Yeah.
the fundamentals. That's all you need.
Yeah, you got to be able to put your thoughts across on a piece of paper, pretty much.
Hmm.
Yeah, even then, like even when we're like blocking out levels for the OS, um, like you kind of I just photo batch like this. Like I remember the other day we were experimenting with plastic drapes. You know how they would fit in the scene. I literally just googled plastic drapes, photoshopped them, put an opacity on it, and just threw it into a screenshot of the level just so we can concept it to get an idea of how it would feel size wise in the scene. So even like in the age of you don't necessarily even have to like when I think of concepting I immediately think of drawing, but like you can easily bang up like a model real quick that's like a quick concept and just do a couple drawovers of just like random like silly sketches or just photo bash a bunch of Google images together. um but I feel like that's something that in time it's like an artistic taste. I definitely was sure as hell wouldn't be able to do it when I was first started, but I can definitely do it now because my art eye has kind of formed over the years of saying, "Oh, this looks good. That doesn't look good." So I think a lot of the newer artists will be a little freaked out when we say, "Yeah, get good at concepting." It's like, no, not literally get good at concepting. Just know how to bring an image from Photoshop into photo or bring an image to Photoshop from Google and put it on a model and like do like a really really rough SketchUp, but it's something that can get your idea across, like Brendan was saying. We're not looking for like some crazy shading, like pencil shading and line work. It's just something that can get your idea across. But I feel like that's something that happens over time, with your artistic eye.
Yeah.
But even being able to draw like a stick figure that's in the right pose is like it might not get you an 80 in school, but if it conveys the message, it's
Totally. Yeah.
so don't
Good
don't
shout.
blow it off, but don't like you don't want to do it. Don't focus on it.
All right. Well, I think it's time we can move on to the next question, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So another person asks, "Do you think people treat you differently based on if you went to school or not?"
Is that a joke? Yes, they
Hey,
do.
people want to know.
People, for me, 'cause of course there's that stereotype. Once you're successful, they think you're some hot shot. They think you're like, wow, you beat the system. You're so smart. It's like, well, it's not that hard. It's just, you kind of have to just go against what people are doing socially. Man, I got so much shit for in high school because I was saying I I didn't want to go to this school and whatnot, and you know but once and then every time I said it to people, like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm just studying, I'm just teaching myself how to be a game artist. And they're like, well, good luck. um but once now that I'm in it and I have a job, now people look at me like I'm some like Bill Gates, like I'm some genius. Like, guys, it's not really that difficult. Yeah, I think that there's this one conversation that stood out to me. I was at a getting my wisdom teeth pulled, and the doctor or the dentist said, oh, so what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm just studying. I'm there learning. doing some business stuff. He's like, did you go to school? I'm like, no, I didn't go to school. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Like, doctor is gonna tell me, whatever whatever he's gonna say. He's like, wow, dude, good for you. I was like, seriously? He's like, yeah. So many people just go to school just to go to school. It's ridiculous. And I was just like, wow. Hearing this from a professor, or a doctor, it just
Yeah,
kind of
so
it blew my mind. He's like, you keep doing you, man. Don't let anyone tell you differently, because at the end of the day, um, what you can do is more than what the paper says you can do. And I was
yeah,
just like,
that
wow. Like, it's like that's like the most, because I always say, like, if you're a doctor, yeah, I get a degree, but this guy is telling me, he's like, keep doing you. It really just opened my eyes to, no matter how high that degree is, people are still gonna have their true thoughts about their thing. Because he was telling me, he's like, I have people come in and they're in their third year and they don't know what they want to do, or if they have a degree that's stupid. And I'm just like, man, this guy is awesome. Like, this guy is just really ripping into it. I love this
it's
guy.
it's
So
hilarious
yeah,
because he was probably in school for
yes,
almost a
that's what makes
decade,
it
probably
that's what
more.
makes it so funny.
Get me out of
That's what
here.
makes it very
Yeah, maybe
ironic.
he's tired of it. He's like, don't do what I did. Oh my god.
Yeah. Um, but a lot of people are like, fuck that guy. He'll learn by himself that because it's like how I learned. He'll learn that school is a bad choice if whatever your degree is. But no, I feel like as soon as a society we start saying that don't worry about school. If school's not for you, it's school for, it is for you. Or uh, man, there's a lot of pressure in high school here in the States about junior year we were asked to start sending off letters to schools that we were interested. So from a very early point, we are pressured to get into a school, and if you don't get pressured to in school, you'll definitely hear the backlash from your teachers and your friends. I got made fun of so many times from friends, and even at some point teachers just blowing you off because well, you're just gonna be a hobo.
Damn.
Yeah, it was rough, but that's something you gotta be very hard headed to take that take that feedback and just kind of brush it off, because you can't let it get to you,
Yeah.
because you know it'll affect your
Well,
work.
another edge to the question, I guess. Like, now that you're in the industry, do people in the industry itself treat you differently if you went to school or not, or do they just not care?
They don't care. I never gotten asked once if like during something, or like working with people, like, oh, like where do you go to school? They just don't care. They really just don't care. Just say the portfolio question is asked more than than like where I've gotten the knowledge. Like, oh, can I see your portfolio? Like, never have I once gotten asked, like, oh, where'd you go to school? It's like, no, it's like, where's your portfolio? Like, all that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, it seems more like your diploma or piece of paper you get from school. Like the game art equivalent is literally like your art station.
Yeah, it's also kind of funny too, because it totally is. And it's kind of funny because at least I get this connection when I do come across people that are self-taught too. There's like this bond. It's weird. It's like, oh, you went through the same struggle that I did. It's like, yeah, dude, I went through the same struggle as you. So it's like it's like that. It's like, oh, like bro points. Like, oh, cool, you did it the way I did it too. It's weird. You see that connection, or at least I see that connection when I come across people who are self-taught. There's just like there's just that click. It's like, oh wow, you did it too. You did it like me. Oh, it's awesome, man. Like because it was a small community of self-taught, but now it's like growing a little bit bigger. But it's more than it's growing. It's becoming more acceptable. And yeah, I have a lot of friends that are self-taught too, and yeah, they're awesome. So yeah, it's definitely not praised, nor am uh I get asked about it. It's like it's whatever. People genuinely just never ask me. And if they do, they're like, oh, cool, and then just move on.
Yeah, yeah. At the end of the day, it's your portfolio that speaks. It's not your degree or how you got there or how long you got there. It took you to get there. It's just like your portfolio. What are you able to do like right now? Like
Yeah.
I found way more stigma behind just saying, like telling other people that I'm going to school or I work in game dev rather than at like the actual diploma in studio. So
Yeah. People people genuinely don't think that there's no money to be made in game art.
Mhm.
It's like it's wild. It's like, oh, you're in game art, so you just play video games all day. It's like, well, yeah, we play video games all day, dude. It's awesome. Like,
Oh,
you
you
know.
make art? That's
Yeah, we play
you have
video
an
games
art
all.
degree? That's
Yeah, an art degree too. That's various
mhm.
last year, a lot of backlash on that as well.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like, especially if you get a job offer just like out of like first or second year, man, like you got to really think like, is it worth getting a diploma? Because you're going to, chances are you're going to learn a lot more in studio. So you just have to be
oh,
like, it just depends
mm.
where you are at the current moment.
If you, yeah, I tell people if you really want to go to the college route, to stop at associates.
Hmm.
Take the 2 years, and if you take the 2 years and just get out. Don't worry about anything, especially if you get a job offer, which you most likely will when you are in the school, just because those connections are just really nice. Yeah, just drop it. Disregard what anybody tells you. Just drop it and just go straight to the job.
And yeah, and in
Yeah.
my experience, a lot of self-taught, they do have that they are a lot more dedicated because they got themselves there rather than like they have like kind of a school to ride on. So they
Mm.
sometimes have higher standards, but it honestly just depends on the person itself. Um, but in terms of like stigma that a studio has, no one really. It doesn't matter. It's just
Never,
where you are.
never. If a studio has a stigma, put them down in the comments because that's not a studio, dude.
Yeah, we only take Harvard
Yeah.
students here, so.
Yeah, it's like, all right, good luck with that.
Yeah, I know more people that have gotten hired out of ArtStation or Instagram that have gotten hired out of like a specific for going to a specific school. Actually, I don't think I know anyone in studio that was hired for going to a specific school. It's just
Oh,
networking and
yeah, that would
portfolio.
be ridiculous. I've
Yeah.
never heard of that. Yeah, never have heard of that.
So
Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, I guess since we've been chatting for well over an hour now, I think we're on to our last question here, and I'm curious to see what you guys have to say about it. Just in general, for people who are a lot younger, maybe in high school, who are thinking about getting into the games industry for art, like what would you advise them to do? Where would you advise them to go? Maybe some things to consider moving forward.
Brenda, you can go.
yeah, start now. Like that, like I said, I went into school. I went into university for programming first. Like I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was like, oh, I'll do art, game programming. I'll just try this. I hated it. So I switched to art. I maybe touched like 2 modeling suites, like Inventor, like I said, and then I just kind of found what I wanted to do. So if you're kind of having, it's better to start when you're younger and kind of find where you want to go because then you have so many more years to learn. Like Dylan, you started like before school. Like by the time you got to school, you were already you were pretty like well established. You kind of knew what was going on.
Yeah, I think it was like I started. The first time I used 3D was for graphic design, but I was doing it in grade 8, I think it was. And
Whoa,
then
that's super
yeah,
young.
and then I switched to Maya by the time I was in my 12th year, so my final year of high school. So by the time I went into college, I had a pretty good grasp. Like I didn't understand things like UVing super strongly, but like I was aware of them. Like I already had like XNormal installed and ZBrush and all of this, and like I dabbled with it, and having that, like even though it was very surface level, like knowing the pipeline. Like even on a very broad level, like gave me a huge edge, I found, and I'm super thankful that I was able to sort of stumble into that before going into college. But
Totally.
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, for me, I'd say, yeah. I remember I read this one quote. The guy said, "If you want to be a game artist, stop playing video games. Yeah, stop playing video games and start making them. That's probably the biggest thing I could tell you, and get on those mentorships. At least drop something and figure out what you want, what you like to do. Part of that was I liked watching a lot of time lapses of hard surface modeling. It's just appealing to me, and through that, I found out that I like hard surface and obviously not characters. And then I also like building, or I like the idea. I liked the idea of building environments and conveying story through those environments was really appealing to me. So that's how I kind of came to the conclusion of doing environment art, and also just general hard surface stuff. But yeah, don't waste time. Stop wasting time. Stop saying you're gonna do it. and you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. Oh, I'm just watching YouTube videos. Like, just start now. Like, just throw yourself in the deep end, and just learn. And then through that, you'll appreciate the, putting yourself out there, and all that.
Sweet. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. And then if
Oh yeah, what about you guys?
Ryan, is there anything you want to tack onto that too?
I completely agree with the stop playing video games and make them.
It's so
mean,
true. It
I
really
used
is. If
to
you think about
spend
it,
a
how many times
lot
you
of
play video games?
times. Yeah, I spent a lot of time playing video games.
Yeah, man. League of Legends, right when you come home.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
Get
exactly.
going,
Like
8 hours. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
uninstalled League of Legends
Oh.
2 months ago. It was the best thing I ever did. Honestly, like
Yeah, it's so
I've
nice.
been so much more productive. Right? It's ridiculous.
So true.
You'll never get me to
Yeah.
uninstall.
Just building that work ethics in high school is just way more important, because if you just slack off for 4 years and then go to school with that high school mentality, you're gonna
Oof.
struggle, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I got like a quick funny story. Like I was at the bus stop coming home from work the other day, and I have like a Ubisoft backpack, and this guy like tapped my shoulder, and apparently he went to the university here, and he was telling me like, oh yeah, I'm, trying to get into programming, do all this kind of stuff. And then I was asking him like, oh, what kind of games do you like? And he's like, well, recently I've had like no time to play games because I'm always busy working on code and stuff. And I'm like, this guy, man, that's the right attitude.
That's how you do it. Yes.
So
It's crazy.
you can tell. You can
Yeah, I
definitely
mean,
tell.
Oh, that's what kind of separates those guys that kind of get in early. They just, again, just putting themselves in that mentality where it's that the tunnel vision, just like game art, game art, game art. And it definitely doesn't make it easy when you have friends message you saying, "Hey, hop on and play." It's like, no, you kind of have to sidewind it, just be like tunnel vision on the goal and whatnot. But yeah, it's crazy because like you can. I never realized how much or how long, or how frequent I played video games. Once I got away from video games, you realize, wow, I used to play Modern Warfare 2 for 12 hours a day when it came out. Like, that's insane. 12 hours. It's insane. Like, you can do so much in that time. Especially with like League. I played League all the time in high school. And man, I wish if I could trade that for 3D modeling and doing all that, man, I'd be very far right now.
Yeah, and too, like a lot of people, just like we have a really small, friendly industry, for the most part. But just message someone if you want to start early. Just message someone on like LinkedIn or ArtStation. Just type in like 3D modeler, environment artist. Just send someone a message. Be like, where can I start? Do you recommend like any tutorials or mentorships? And like it might seem like a lot, especially if you're like not like there socially, just to kind of message a random person, but everyone's super friendly, man. People are willing to help you, and everyone wants to see everyone else excel. So
Yeah, actually, I
Yeah.
think I was telling you this before, Taylor, but that's literally how I met Clinton and ended up doing some work with Dekogon. Was
Yeah.
I saw he liked my stuff. I didn't know who he was, so I just sent him a message and asked for feedback. And before you know it, I'm able to sort of make some proper assets and get something written on a resume because I was just trying to have people
Totally.
help me out and get some feedback. So everyone's super open to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's such a great industry, honestly.
Yeah, that's what it's another big thing is just completely saturate and immerse yourself into the industry. I think because I literally I had Twitter beforehand. It was like just like public Twitter, just like friends and whatnot. But now it's like I removed all of high school buddies, any friends. It is now strictly game art. I got artists that I like. So now whenever I go on Discord, I'm immersed with 3D. Whenever I go on Twitter, I'm immersed with 3D. Whenever I go on ArtStation, I'm just immersed. My YouTube's immersed with 3D. So just like everything is like just surrounding yourself with the same imagery, and you'll slowly find yourself becoming like, oh, I'm gonna get on Blender today and learn this, and it's gonna be a great time. I'm gonna learn a lot. Just kind of like prepping your surroundings with the goal, or just people that have the same ambitions as you is super helpful, at least for me. Just is setting the mood, and also just being inspired by like seeing just constant crazy art and whatnot. You know, whether it be something that someone posted on Twitter, like a work in progress, or like something you see in the Discord, just like constantly surrounding yourself with talent and inspiration can also be very beneficial when it's time to actually sit down and do some work. At least that's something that I found very because I've recently started doing that as of maybe a year ago, just completely saturating myself in it, and I love it. It's awesome. Like I just go through my Twitter. I'm just like, it's like nerd central, man. Like everything's just like, oh, like look at these face waves, or look at this crazy sub D add-on in Blender, or like, you know, look at, you know, Matthew O's new mentorship, or look at Josh Lynch's new materials, or look at Daniel Thager's new tutorial series. Like it's crazy. Like you can just like always stay relevant and always know what's going on in the industry that you want to be in. So yeah, I'm not sure, Brendan, would you have to agree with that?
Yeah, man, 100%. Like I said before, I think I said it, but like don't compare yourself to your peers. Don't compare yourself to just people in your current vicinity. Like get out there
Yes.
and immerse yourself in like the entire industry. Don't just hide in your little
Yeah.
group.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure, dude.
Cool. I mean, I guess I'm looking at the time now, and I'm thinking, I mean, we should probably start wrapping this up. I mean, I really appreciate having both of you guys on. I think this was actually like a really good chat. Before we go, though, is there anything you guys would maybe want to shout out, or anything you want to ask each other before we wrap things up totally?
If you need an OS, reach out to Dekogon. Shameless plug. Yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah.
I don't really have much to plug.
Cool.
What about you, Brendan? You got a portfolio? You trying to get extra followers? Trying to get a few hundred followers?
Nah, I think I'm good, man. Just follow tie-dye, man.
Oh no.
Good channel.
Make sure
Check
to
out.
comment, like, and subscribe on this
hit the
video,
like button,
guys.
guys.
Yeah, man. Smash the like button, boys.
If we don't get 10,000 likes on this video.
Oh, that's funny.
All right, that's
But-
awesome.
Awesome. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was fun, man. Thank you.
Sweet.
Yes, thank you.
Ryan, want to say anything?
Well, in all seriousness, if like anyone listening to this has any ideas of any future talks that you guys want us to talk about, or any like questions, make sure like definitely comment or tweet to either Dylan or I, and we'll try and get that stuff covered, and we'll try and talk to that person, or we'll try and, I don't know, whatever you comment, like we'll try and get it done for you. And yeah, don't be afraid to just message us.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. Anyways, guys, I think that'll do it. So thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you to our guests for coming on behalf of everyone. I mean, yeah, thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys have a great day.
Yeah, pleasure.
Bye.
See it.
Bye.